they grow out of it. And at the same time, they organize rides and that sort of thing, and advocate for using the bicycle for all your family transportation needs and recreational needs. You want to come around to the stairs, you can climb right up there, actually. So I will introduce to you then Morgan Shear of Seattle Family Biking. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I am Morgan with Family Bike Seattle. And Family Bike Seattle is a nonprofit that was started in 2009. And I'm here with this nonprofit, and I'm representing the idea that there is another way to get around town than driving, and that there are several ways to get around town, and there are ways that work for most people that don't involve cars. And one of those ways is biking. And biking can work for lots of different people that we don't really think about as it working for. And in this case, families with kids of all ages, young kids all the way up to teenagers and elders, and families of all shapes and sizes. So this is my bike, Xena. Does anyone recognize that name, Xena? I hear somebody clapping. Xena Warrior Princess was a television show in the 80s when there weren't a whole lot of television shows about super badass women. And so Xena is a super badass woman, and I thought naming my bike after her would be an honor. So I bike all the time. I bike using this bike mostly. I bike with my 14-year-old and my wife when it's raining and when it's dark, and even when I'm sick. I have a chronic illness, so I often feel sick. And this doesn't make me particularly virtuous. I don't do it so that I can win the Sustainability Olympics. I do it because it works, and it works really, really well. And it works better than driving would for me, because I've created the systems in my family and developed the knowledge so that it does work. And that's what Family Bike Seattle is all about, is helping other families develop the systems and the knowledge so that biking can work at least as well, if not better, than driving a car. So some of the reasons that biking works really well for me and my family is that, first off, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. We have fun every time we get on the bike. When we first started, I started biking with my kids when they were very, very tiny. And my younger son, at that time we did have a car, and whenever we put him in the car, he would scream. He would scream so loud, and he would never stop screaming. And it's very difficult to drive a car safely when someone is screaming nonstop without at 100 decibels, very, very loud screaming. So even though I already was interested in biking, it's really hard to figure out how to do it with two kids, but I had a lot of incentive. My younger son refused to not scream in the car. But when I put him on a bike, he was totally happy, and he didn't scream. This is not everybody's experience, but it provided the oomph to help me get over the hump into figuring out how to make this work. And so I started off with just a regular bike and a trailer, and I already had the bike in my garage, or in my den, as it were, and a trailer that I got off Craigslist, and I strapped my younger son's car seat into that trailer because he was younger than a year old. Kids can only support their neck development, can only support helmets at about a year. It depends on the child. It can be 9 months to a little over a year. And so I wasn't going to put a helmet on my son before he was able to support it. So I put him in his car seat in a trailer, and we went all around town, and it was fantastic. And then I started wanting to go further, and my older son was taking gymnastics classes, and where's gymnastics? It's way far away. And Then there were other classes to be taken, and then there was a preschool bike pool that we wanted to do together, and there were all these different things. So I started trying to figure out systems that would work even better than a trailer or for a longer period of time, because trailers max out at about 100 pounds. And so over time, I collected a lot of different equipment, including some kind of bizarre looking things like a recumbent pedicab with front wheel drive, and a trike, an adult sized trike with a really, really big cargo box in the back that I put my kids in. So they were just peeking over the edge of the cargo box in their little seats with their seat belts. It was quite adorable. And once I'd collected all this stuff and all this knowledge, I thought maybe other parents would be interested. And so I threw my first Family Bike Expo, which is where I brought all this equipment and asked my friends to bring equipment, and all the families that I knew that did any biking at all brought all their equipment and all their know-how and all their happiness, and we talked to other parents about it. And since that time, family biking has gotten a lot more common. It's been almost 20 years, and most people have seen something like this at least once. Is that true for you? How many of you have seen a longtail ever? Awesome. Sweet. How many of you have not seen a longtail or have no idea what I'm talking about? Okay, there's a couple of hands there too. Awesome. Thank you. So this bike is a longtail. It's called a longtail because the front half of the bike is sort of normal proportions, but the back half is elongated behind the seat. There's this big old bench seat, and that's where my kids or my wife sits, or any hitchhiker I happen to pick up that day. I actually did get to pick up a hitchhiker on my bike a couple weeks ago. It was the first time. I've stopped for hitchhikers a number of times, but they've never said yes. They've never hopped on. I've said, hey, yeah, hop on. I've got a helmet. I'll take you where you need to go. And the first time, just a few weeks ago, this woman actually agreed, and she hopped on, and I got to take her to the Bellevue Botanical Gardens. It was such a thrill. She was late, and her family was worried about her, and she was worried because she was lost. So I actually got to help somebody out in a really big way by having them hop on the back of my bike. It was really sweet. That's an aside. So this is a longtail. This bike has electric assist, and a lot of families, when they first come to me and say, okay, I'd like to try family biking, but oh my God, I'm terrified because A, hills, and B, hills, and then maybe some rain, and then how about traffic? So those are the four big concerns, the first two, of course, being the same thing, which is hills. And electric assist really, really, really helps with hills. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about the pros and cons of electric assist. This bike didn't come with electric assist. I've added the assist later, and in fact, this is the third system that's been on this bike. And that's still the case, that you can buy kits that you can add to your bike to add electric assist, or you can buy bikes that have it already integrated. And there's pluses and minuses to both of those things also. Usually getting a kit is cheaper, but usually if you get a bike that's integrated, it's often a much smoother experience. Although if you have to replace the battery, you better hope that company is still exists. Whereas if you get a kit, you can usually replace the battery no matter what. So electric assist, I first got it when my kids were topping 120 pounds. And I live in the south end of Seattle, and I had to take them to Ballard regularly. And so I had the 125 pounds on the back of my bike, and I'm huffing and puffing to Ballard. And I noticed I was getting really grumpy. And it took me a while to figure out why I was so grumpy. But I was grumpy because I was working really, really friggin' hard, and they were not. And it just really offended my sense of justice. So in order to be less tired and get to do that commute without being so grumpy, which my kids didn't deserve, I got an electric assist. Adding that electric assist was it upped the fun factor tremendously, and that's one of the pluses to electric assist is, wow, I thought biking was fun. Biking is fun. Biking with electric assist is really fun. And it's not fun because you get to go fast necessarily. It's just fun. It's just fun because there you are on your bike and you don't have to work so hard. You can just go as much as you want to. It really lifts the spirits. You feel like a kid again. The downside to electric assist, of course, is that it's expensive. It's often the most expensive part of the bike. And batteries have to be replaced every 3 years, depending on how often you use them and how well you care for them. And it can both extend your range, as in, now I can bike even if I'm tired. Now I can bike to the limit of my battery. Now I can bike even when it's dark, even when I don't really want to work that hard. Now I can carry all this stuff. So it can extend your range that way, but it can limit your range to the battery capacity. It's almost an emotional limit. Like, oh, my battery will only take me 20 miles. I better limit myself to 20 miles. So it's both an extender and also a boundary. It doesn't have to be that way. My battery is charging right now so that it doesn't limit my range. But sometimes searching for a place to charge my battery, if I need it, can be stressful. So there's the pluses and the minuses all wrapped into one. I'm trying to think how deeply I should go into electric assist, because I have no idea what y'all want to know. How many people here are really interested in learning more details about electric assist, or should I move on? Details about electric assist. Okay, fantastic. So I'm kind of geeky, and people often tell me to tone down the geekiness. So feel free to yell out, "Geek it down!" All right, and I will try. So I've got a mid-drive. There's two main kinds of electric assist. There's mid-drive and hub motor, and they both have their pluses and minuses. Mine is a mid-drive, i.e. it's literally in the middle of the bicycle. And it is, motors like to turn at a certain rate, and they're most efficient and they're happiest if they're turning at that rate. If my motor is in my wheel and it wants to turn at a particular rate, that means my wheel has to be turning at that rate. And that means my bike is going to be going at a particular speed that makes my motor happy, right? In a mid-drive, it's connected to my gears. So the motor can be perfectly happy at many, many speeds, because I will adjust the gearing so that my pedal cadence is what makes the motor happy, not how fast the wheel itself is going. So mid-drives are a little more efficient because they take advantage of your gears. They also can work hard at all speeds, and their working hard is equally effective in moving the bicycle forward. A hub motor is in the wheel, and mine doesn't have one, but it's in the center of the wheel in the hub, and that is a mid-drive also. I was going to say, oh, there's one. No, that's a hub. That's not a hub motor. That's a mid-drive also. And hub motors are a little bit less efficient because they have that thing where they like to be turning at a particular pace, and so they don't pull as well at all speeds. But there's other advantages to hub motors. They're really, really simple. So there's less to break, typically, and they're easy to add on to your bike or take off again if it's a kit. So those are some pluses to hub motors. They're also often cheaper, although that's not always the case. There are some very expensive hub motor brands also. So hub motors and mid-drives. We've got those two. Any questions about hub motors versus mid-drives and pluses and minuses? Okay, so let's talk about batteries. Is there interest in batteries? Okay, a little bit of interest in batteries. Great. So people often come up to me and they ask me, so how far can you go on your electric assist? And I say, well, that really depends on how much capacity my battery has. And my particular battery has 18 amp hours, which is really pretty big. And I can go about 40 miles on there on my battery, which is including my estimation of how much cargo and the average number of hills and average amount of hills that I ride. So everybody's mileage will vary. Your mileage may vary is not just a saying. In this case, it is absolutely the truth, because it depends on how much cargo you're going to carry and how hilly it's going to be and how fast you're going to go. It turns out that going fast uses a lot of battery, a lot more battery than going a little slower. So if I go 15 miles an hour to my destination, that's a lot easier on my battery than if I go 18 miles an hour to my destination. And all of that is much, much easier than going over 20 miles an hour. Once you break 20 miles an hour, then your efficiency returns start to diminish quite significantly. So staying below 20 miles an hour is a good idea on an electric bike if you're worried about battery and efficiency. Yeah. There's some great places to get electric assist here in West Seattle. Alki Bike and Board is an expert at adding electric assist, and they also have bicycles that are built-in, have built-in electric assist. I believe like this one right here, which is a fantastic bike. There's some other shops in the area also. If you don't live in West Seattle, there's some shops in North Seattle and in Capitol Hill who are also experts in electric assist. And Ballard, and maybe downtown. So if you're interested in purchasing a bike, talk to Stu at Alki Bike and Board, or your neighborhood shop if you live in one of those areas. What I do at Family Bike Seattle is I help families of all kinds figure out what kinds of bikes are potentially going to work for their families, and then help them manifest that for themselves. And one of the ways we do that is we have a rental fleet. All of the bikes are available on weekly rental. You can rent them for a week at a time on sliding scale. The sliding scale goes down to $25 for the week, so it's affordable to almost anyone. And if it's not affordable to you, then you can just let me know and rent on scholarship. And 80% of the people that rent our bikes, 80% purchase a cargo bike within 3 months. That is tremendous. And many of these people, obviously, if you're going to rent, you have some interest already. You know, you've sort of done some thinking and figured out for yourself that this is something that you're interested in. But that's still a tremendous conversion rate from someone who hasn't been riding a cargo bike to someone who then owns one. And the reason there's no way to know for sure, but I think the reason that it's so effective is that you really get to experience how practical and fun and safe these bikes are. We've already talked a little bit about fun. I could always talk more about fun. I mean, my God, the number of songs we've sung together on the bike, the number of things we've pointed out. Even being in a lightning storm is kind of fun on a cargo bike, because at least it's interesting, and you know that the kids are excited. But it's also practical. It's not just fun. You know, as adults, we're supposed to adult, right? Adulting means not just having fun all the time. We're also supposed to do things that are practical and good for us. Well, biking is practical and good for us. Of course, having fun is very, very good for us. But biking is good for us on all sorts of other levels as well, and is intensely practical, particularly in Seattle, where traffic is really bad. Traffic is really bad. It's been getting bad for a long time. When I first moved to Seattle in 1988, we had rush hour, as you all know. But I believe now we have rush day. Starts at 6 in the morning and goes till 7 at night, and that's rush hour, right? On a bike, there is a lot of infrastructure, and there's more every year. And by infrastructure, I mean bike lanes, greenways, separated infrastructure that gets you off the road, off the main roads, and into a more pleasant experience. And so most of the places I go, most if not all of the way, I get to not be with everybody else in traffic who's really stressed out and angry and anxious and honking at each other. And that means that I get there with less stress, and we all know that stress is a really big deal in our modern life, and stress is one of the things that contributes to disease rates and cancer and obesity and all of those things. And so I get to have less stress, and also, of course, exercise. I mean, I don't know if I have to talk about how healthy exercise is, right? We all know this. We all know do we all know exercise is healthy? All right, exercise is super healthy, but it turns out it's not even it's just one of the many benefits of biking to get places. I often get to where I need to go at about the same time as someone who's driving would get there. It does depend on how far I'm going, but especially if parking is factored in, I can park pretty much at the door, and a car never can, and often has to look for a really long time or pay for parking. My parking is free. So it takes me about the same amount of time, and I'm getting there less stressed out, having exercised, which means my brain is well able to move on to the next thing. And I feel refreshed, and my kids are also refreshed. This is possible because of greenways, because of separated infrastructure, because of bike lanes. And so one of the things that I would encourage all of us to do is to get involved in our advocacy, in advocating for more infrastructure for biking. Infrastructure for biking makes the roads safer for everyone, makes the roads safer for drivers, makes the roads safer for bicyclists, makes the roads safer for pedestrians. In Seattle, we have a goal, Vision Zero in 2020, that calls for 0 traffic fatalities by 2020. And that's a vision I support, absolutely. That's a vision I think all of us could support. Nobody wants to be killed in a traffic death. What most of us don't realize is that many of our traffic-related fatalities and injuries are because of the way the roads are engineered, and many of these can be engineered away. Not exclusively, right? People will violate the rules and go against all common sense occasionally, regardless. But many, if you look at the details for the traffic fatalities where drivers of cars have hit each other cars, pedestrians, or bicyclists, and there have been injuries or fatalities, many of those could be engineered away with specific, by narrowing roads, by having separated infrastructure for bikes, separated bike lanes, by having all different curb bulbs and rates of lighting and all these different things that the Seattle Department of Transportation knows about, but needs some help in implementing in terms of our will and our desire. So I would encourage everyone to say yes to infrastructure that decreases injury and death on our roadways. That being said, biking is in fact a very safe activity. There's lots of studies. Recently there was a review of studies of how healthy is bicycling in terms of longevity. Does it affect your longevity? And they found that bicycling regularly, on average, not of course on the individual, right? That's how studies work. On average, increased people's longevity by up to 15 years. That's taking into account traffic fatalities, and so that's taking into account all the factors of what it's like to be biking on the road. So right now, even without great infrastructure, bicycling regularly increases the average lifespan by 15 years, up to 15 years. That's pretty remarkable. That says a lot about the tremendous health benefits of this activity. And I think a lot of it does have to do with not just exercise, which is amazing, but also decreasing stress, creating more connection with yourself and your place, where you are, and having just a generally higher quality of life. Any questions at this point? No, thank you. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about Family Bike Seattle and specifically what we do. So I've talked a little bit about the rental fleet. You can rent bikes for a week at a time at a sliding scale of $25 to $225 a week. The high end, of course, subsidizes the low end so that the fleet can continue to be maintained. In addition to that, we have critical mass rides. So monthly at least, and sometimes weekly family rides that are super fun. We go all over town. Many people who start bicycling start recreational riding first, and that's a really fantastic. Recreational riding is a fantastic gateway drug to riding every day. And getting to ride with other parents and with families is also a wonderful way to see what other people are doing and kind of feel comfortable, and that there's communal support for this activity that isn't necessarily supported by the mainstream. And so coming on the critical mass rides is a great kickoff to being able to ride a little bit more. We also have family bike expos. Like today, we brought a whole bunch of bikes, and they're just right over there, and they're available for riding and trying out. And we do mentoring. So if you're interested in riding more, or you're just interested in getting out of the car, or you're just noticing that you're really frustrated about being in the car a lot, then call me up and talk to me, and we'll talk about options. Biking can be really hard to get into because there's a lot of barriers, especially for families. We don't have a cultural knowledge of what it takes to be a bicyclist. And so that's what Family Bike is here for, is to help overcome those barriers by talking through what your specific needs are, what your specific situation is, and how you could potentially move forward, and what draws you the most. We also teach classes. So if you're interested in getting together with a group of your friends, or your preschool, or PEPS group, or scout troop, or whatever, and learning about family biking, then call me up. And I feel like we do a lot of working with other nonprofits. We donate the use of our bicycles. Right now we're working with the food bank in Rainier Valley, to do some rides. So we're providing bicycles for people who don't have them, who register for the ride. And we provided bikes for the Seafair Indian Days powwow, for the security folks to use so that they get around more easily. And the cargo bikes were great for them to use because they could put all their stuff in the back. Yeah, so that's what Family Bike is all about, and that's sort of a very, very general intro to electric assist and family riding. Does anyone have any questions about riding with kids? I mean, we haven't really talked about riding with kids, the activity itself yet. Yeah. Any rides we have planned this summer? Actually, we have a ride planned to the West Seattle Traffic Garden, and then to Full Tilt coming up. The date has just changed, so I don't actually remember what the date is. But you can go to the website, familybike.org, or to our Facebook group, which is Seattle Family Biking, which is the Facebook that Stu was talking about earlier. It's a really great community of folks to just chat about family riding and check out the events there. Usually we do an event called the Disaster Relief Trials, and the Disaster Relief Trials is all about if in the event of a really big earthquake, roads are not necessarily going to be reliable to get relief supplies from where they are to where they need to go. However, bikes can still navigate even very broken up terrain, even terrain that has trees and power poles and etc. across it. So the Disaster Relief Trials is about highlighting and practicing in a super fun way what it might be like to use your cargo bike, use your bike, could be just a bike in a trailer, could be a long tail like this, could be any kind of bike, to carry disaster relief supplies throughout the city. Usually we do the disaster relief trials in September. This year it's getting postponed until probably the spring, so keep an eye on that. It's super fun. Last year it was in West Seattle. And come try out the bikes. Nobody's actually gotten to ride the bikes yet today, although I've gotten to talk to a lot of people. So if you're interested in trying out some electric cargo bikes or non-electric cargo bikes, seeing how your kids like them, seeing which style you like the best, come on over and talk to me and give it a try. Thank you so much for your time, and have a lovely rest of this beautiful Sunday.
Thank you, Morgan Cheer. I've been saying Seattle Family Biking because that's the way I've always done it. Family Biking Seattle. Family Bike Seattle. So at any rate, there's one more ride I could tell you about that's coming up here in West Seattle too. And I hope we're connecting with Family Bike Seattle on this one. It's called the Log House to Longhouse ride. It's for all ages, and it is in August. And we'll have this up on the website for Sustainable West Seattle as well. So talking about health and wholeness today as well, we're looking, offering you the alternatives. I hope you accept some of these ideas, because we know at this point, sitting in a traffic jam on the West Seattle Bridge or anywhere else on the rush hour day or the rush day is going to make it so that you're going to actually have to deal with stress that you should never have to deal. Instead of relieving stress, I just talked to someone earlier today about his commute to work, and he said he actually goes out of his way to put on extra miles on his commute. Who would do that in a car? He goes out of his way to just go out and enjoy it a little bit more. Stress relief is very important. On the other hand, building stress up while you're waiting for the traffic to clear is very unhealthy. So stress relief, healthy. Stress in a traffic jam, unhealthy. Do we understand that together? All right, thank you. So one of the things that was discussed there is route selection. Margaret was saying that she can do most of her errands and her runs and her needs for transportation without seeing much in the way of cars, with separated facilities, as well as choosing the right route, or the greenway routes, which is an implementation of routes that are going through neighborhoods to calm traffic, to keep those cars from speeding through your own neighborhoods where your children play, where you need to get to transit, where you need to walk to the mailbox. So those are called greenways, and we have 2 of them here in West Seattle. We're working on getting more of them, and those are beautiful places for pedestrians and bicycles, and really a beautiful place for a car where you don't have to be speeding through life at a stressful rate. It's always important to understand when you go way over the speed level, when you're speeding through life, I'll see you at the next light on my bicycle. I see it all the time. So you got to realize when you're actually being efficient or not. Bicycles are super efficient. So one of the things that's happening in West Seattle is we're getting more and more facilities built in. And the reason we're getting that is one of the partners of Sustainable West Seattle has helped us a lot with our communication with the Seattle Department of Transportation. The group is called West Seattle Bike Connections. And if you've seen new green boxes, new facilities, new separated lanes, new paint going down on your streets, it's probably because the West Seattle Bike Connections communications on behalf of all cyclists. And they are dedicated to making cycling safer for all users, including car drivers. So I would like to bring up to the stage this time to tell you a little bit more about what's going to be coming into our neighborhoods real soon and all the plans that are being used in what's called the Bicycle Master Plan. So from West Seattle Bike Connections, a partner of Sustainable West Seattle, we're real proud to have that. I want to introduce you Don Brubeck. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stu and Morgan. There's really not much I can say after Morgan has given the whole talk about what it's like to ride a bike, and Stu's talked about all the benefits of it. And but I'm happy to talk about anything really specific people have about questions about for riding a bike in West Seattle or to or from West Seattle. And if you don't have any specific questions, I'll just be part of your background noise as you enjoy your food from all the great vendors here, and tell you a little bit about our organization and why we formed it and what's going on now. West Seattle Bike Connections is a volunteer community organization that's probably got about 50 or 60 people who are actively involved from all over the peninsula. And we're basically interested in safe streets and healthy ways of getting around, whether that's by bike or by walking or taking transit. And we focus on bike riding because it hadn't really had a lot of attention in this part of town or support from the city for quite a while. And we are, there are plenty of bike clubs that emphasize racing and kind of fast recreational riding. And our emphasis is more on just getting more people onto bikes who haven't been doing it before, who may be wanting to ride with children, who may be older riders, who may have ridden a bike when they were a kid but haven't done it for 10 or 20 or 30 years. So we're interested in ways that the streets can be more accommodating for all ages and all abilities. So people can use bikes to get to places they want to go, like school and work and shopping, libraries, community centers, parks, their friends' houses, just really for ordinary transportation. And we also see that bike riding as a way of getting around has less kind of requirements on the street than a bus or a car or a truck. We take less space, we put less wear and tear on the roads. It takes less taxes to support what we're doing. So it's actually very efficient. I mean, we supply the power, and we don't need really as much infrastructure as, say, a bus or a light rail system. It's by far the most cost-efficient transportation method, or actually one of the most efficient machines ever invented, a bicycle. So it's one way that West Seattle can absorb all this growth that's happening that you see right here, right around us, these 6- and 8-story apartment buildings that are coming soon to a street near you on Avalon or Fauntleroy or Roxbury, around Westwood Village. There are a lot more people, but there's not a lot more road to absorb all that traffic. And if we can get the people who are willing and able to do it onto bikes instead of in cars, it actually leaves more room for the people that really need to drive a car, and it leaves more seats on the buses, which are also a fairly scarce resource and expensive one. So we started in 2012 when the bicycle master plan for Seattle was getting redone, and it didn't seem like there was very much attention being paid to West Seattle. We looked at online surveys and so forth, and there were very few comments coming out of West Seattle, very few meetings over here, and about 6 or 7 of us started this group, and there already were some groups with similar interests, and Stu was part of one with the West Seattle Greenways group and spokespeople, which really worked on some of the first bike infrastructure specifically done in West Seattle for neighborhoods and for kind of the all ages and abilities approach in developing the 26th Avenue Greenway. And so people like Stu and Jake, by going door to door, basically talking to neighbors, made the case for calming down traffic on certain streets, residential streets, to make them safe for all people to be able to get out and ride a bike or walk and cross the street safely on their way to school or around their neighborhood. And that's essentially what we started doing. We allied with Sustainable West Seattle because it seemed like our goals were so much in keeping. And then eventually with Seattle Neighborhood Greenways, which is a citywide coalition of safe streets groups like ours. And that's given us quite a bit of political influence. We're able to go to city council members or the mayor or Department of Transportation or local businesses and business associations and speak as a group with one voice rather than just as lone wolf individuals who have something to complain about. We actually become a resource for information about West Seattle to say city council member staffs or Department of Transportation, and help develop in the bicycle master plan which routes in West Seattle make the most sense to ride a bike on for traffic or for grades or for access to where we want to go. And then we also look at, it's not just the kind of the lines on the maps, it's the dots where the lines cross, the intersections are where it's really hard sometimes for pedestrians or bike riders to be safe. So we work on grant projects and specific intersections that really need improvement, like by the Chelan Cafe, the 5-way intersection near the Low Bridge. We got a rapid flashing beacon and crosswalk installed at 11th and Holden, working with the Highland Park Community Improvement Association, and improvements on California, Juneau. Right now we have a grant application that's in design now for big improvements at Spokane and Avalon and Harbor, that major intersection and entrance into West Seattle from the Alki Trail and from the Spokane Street Bridge and the off-ramp off the High Bridge, where it can be really unsafe to be on a bike where cars can't see you. So we work on projects like that. We try to follow up whenever there's a major project coming in West Seattle, like the repaving of Avalon and the Fauntleroy Boulevard project and repaving of Roxbury. These are current projects that we are actively engaging Department of Transportation on to make sure that we can accommodate safe bike routes and also really support our local neighborhood shopping districts and our transit system without really getting in the way of the people that need to drive a car. In fact, separating that traffic is often the key to safety. And we're doing the same with East Marginal Way into downtown. As soon as that gets rebuilt with what they call protected bike lanes that are separated from the heavy truck traffic, we'll have basically a highway for bikes into downtown that could, instead of the 2,000 or 3,000 people riding to downtown today, it could be 10 times that many sometime in the future, in 3 or 4 or 5 years. Because you have to go through industrial areas to get in or out of Seattle, we've also tried to work with the Port of Seattle, which owns most of the land we have to drive through, and industries and Burlington Northern Railroad to make sure that they see bike transit as an ally to freight traffic. That if we're on bikes and we're separated from the truck traffic, then we're not in a car that's blocking or slowing down the freight traffic, which is really important on places like East Marginal Way, both north and south of Spokane Street. So we've done things like have a bike and truck safety fair where we get truck drivers and freight companies to bring in semis and big trucks, and we come as bike riders and we try out each other's gear, kind of get up in a truck cab and really see what the blind spots are for a truck driver, and have them drive us around a little route, so that we understand what they can see and not see, so we know how to behave around a big truck, and then they get an appreciation for what we're going through on the ground below them. And knock on wood down here, we have had a good safety record on East Marginal Way for the last 5 years, I think. And it might owe a little bit to that kind of mutual understanding and care that the truck drivers need to take and we need to take too. I think we're really blessed living in West Seattle and in fact living in the whole Puget Sound region for being able to ride a bike. First of all, it's a really mild climate. And you can ride a bike most any day of the year and be comfortable. And it doesn't take a huge amount of special gear, and it doesn't really take a shower at work or a locker. If you work a regular day shift and get to work somewhere between 7 and 9 in the morning, the temperature hardly ever is above 60 degrees in the mornings. So, and if you're going downtown, it's basically downhill. So if you just take it easy and wear clothing where you feel cool when you start out, you'll feel warm when you get there, and you won't be all sweaty and in need of a shower, and a little sweat doesn't hurt anybody anyway. It dries off. And then in the wintertime, yeah, it rains here, but it doesn't really snow here, and there's not much ice on the ground. And hi, Paul. And of course, if you really don't want to sweat, you can do what Paul and Morgan and Stu have talked about and have a battery and a little bit of a power assist on your ride, which you can use to the extent you want to get up some of the hills, which is the other objection people usually have about riding in Seattle. Oh my gosh, there are hills. But you can flatten those hills with an electric bike or with a bike that has a lot of really low gears. And any of West Seattle's good bike shops like Alki Bike and Board or West Seattle Cyclery or Aaron's in White Center are perfectly aware of that and set people up for commuting and touring, recreational riding, on bikes that are made or built all set up for our environment here with these nice hills that can either get you in shape or they can wear you out, and you can deal with it in any number of ways. So the hills bring up an issue that we felt was really important in the bicycle master plan, and that is that to get up the hills, the easiest way to get up the hills is to use the first big streets that were developed in West Seattle, the angled ones that go up the hills at an angle, and they did that because they were great as a wagon road or a road for trucks in the days the trucks didn't have big engines. So Avalon and Admiral and Fauntleroy and a couple others. If you see a street in West Seattle that's going at an angle, it's probably doing that to get up the hill at the easiest way possible. And those maybe around 1920 or so were okay for riding a bike on, but now they have a lot of heavy car traffic, and they're difficult to ride a bike on safely until they get a really separated bike lane. Admiral on the west side is fine now, and coming up pretty soon there'll be a piece of Fauntleroy from right down here on Alaska down to 35th that gets protected bike lanes, and then in 2019 probably that'll continue into Avalon and go down to Spokane Street, and that'll link up to a trail, and that'll link up to East Marginal Way, and someday Fauntleroy going farther toward the ferry terminal will get more protected bike lanes, and we'll really be able to have much more access to many more people to be able to ride a bike easily on the streets that have the most commercial development, the most dense housing development, and go to the most workplaces, either downtown, and also link to the ferry terminal over to Vashon, West Seattle West over there. So they're great routes. I don't know, let's see. Stu, you probably already talked about riding in the rain and that sort of thing. No, but
that's electric bike.
Riding, I ride my bike to work, and I've ridden every day this year to work on a bike. I do it because I enjoy it, which most people don't seem to say about their commute when they get to work. I get a little bit of exercise at the beginning and the end of the day, so I arrive more wakened up and ready to go. And I also enjoy it because of what I see along the way. It's really pleasant on part of the ride. See eagles and sea life along the shore on part of it. Interesting industrial stuff in Sodo, and I like it because it's reliable. If on my fast bike it takes me 32 to 35 minutes every day, and on my slower bike it takes about 40 minutes, and the only thing that gets in the way is if the low bridge swings open, and that takes an extra 5 or 10. But if I take the bus, it's anywhere from 25 minutes to an hour, and if I take a car, it's anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours. And it's quite unpredictable, so you have to leave earlier than you need to leave if you're driving. And if I take the bike, I mean, the biggest factor on the time is more like the wind speed or wind direction than anything else. And for riding in the wintertime, just having good lights. I have a winter bike that has a generator and a light that always comes on and is bright on the path, and some rain gear. And it isn't any, you don't have to have a lot of really bike-specific stuff. I'm riding today wearing shorts and running shoes and a t-shirt that's from our bike group, but it's not a bike t-shirt, and it works absolutely fine. And you can mix and match ski gear, and on the coldest days in winter I wear a ski helmet because it's got ear flaps on it. and any good parka or rain jacket will work. There are bike rain jackets that are even better in some respects, but not necessary at all. And there are rain pants that you can use for hiking and for bike riding and standing out on a fishing pier. And also the rain is it's just water. You know, it dries off, and it doesn't really take that long. So, and our rainwater doesn't really get below about 40 degrees, which is a really great temperature to ride in. It's actually easier to ride in cold rain than it is in hot rain, because if you're at around 50 degrees, you don't know whether you should be having rain gear and sweat or no rain gear and get wet. And that's a choice too. Sometimes if it's raining and fairly warm, I'll just wear clothes that I don't mind getting wet and will dry off quickly, and I'll wear sandals and let the water drain out of the sandals. And that's just a matter of figuring out what works for you as you go along. Let's see. We did a great ride today. A ride from we did the West Seattle STP, the Seattle to Portland ride. And in West Seattle, that's from Southwest Seattle Street to Southwest Portland Street, which is 5.2 miles. And it was a good one. We had about maybe 30 people, and some of them were, let's see, our youngest was 2 years old. Our oldest was probably in the 70s. Went nice and slow and made it back here for a huge festival. It's just, I mean, when we crossed the line to Oregon, the big cheer went up, just like on the going across the bridge at Longview on the big STP. So look for us on Facebook if you want to. We have occasional rides. The next one, which Stu mentioned too, is with Southwest Historical Society. Excuse me. And that's called the Log House to Longhouse ride. And we'll either start at the Log House Museum or on 63rd at Chief Seattle's monument there at the beach, and ride the Alki Trail and the Duwamish Trail to Herring's House Park and the Duwamish Tribe's Longhouse. So that's a very flat ride. There's just one little hump over the hill at the low bridge. Anybody, any age, who can pedal a bike or ride in a bike seat or a bike trailer is welcome on that ride, and we'd love to have you. There are going to be speakers, maybe even actors, who are dressed up to talk about West Seattle history at 3 points along the way, and then we're hoping we can do something with the tribe at the Longhouse too. And I don't know, that's about all I can think of. And if anybody wants to talk to me, I've got brochures and literature and maps.
Thank you, Don Brubeck, West Seattle Bike Connections. They do a lot of work. They get together regularly. They go to the meetings. They ride regularly downtown, because that's where our transit and our SDOT, Seattle Department of Transportation, meetings take place. So I just wanted to ask a question. There's very few of you left, but let's just take a little poll. Who out there drives a car to work each day? Anybody else? That means the rest of you must use transit, or they must use bicycles. Do you ever get caught occasionally in a traffic jam? Anybody? Yeah, of course we do. So that's why the bicycle has been really effective for helping us get to town, get to our workplaces. That's one of the benefits. The other benefits, of course, are the health benefits, and that's why we're talking about bicycling so much today. It is something you can do. You don't have to join a gym. You don't have to pay $400 a month, which I've heard many times. Many of my customers come to me and they tell me, I pay so many hundreds of dollars a month for parking downtown. Parking downtown is very expensive. Not too many people have, like Amazon or someone like that, giving them comps for the parking. So that's another reason. You could pay for an electric bike, actually, in a very short time if you're paying $100 a month for your parking. So the other thing I like to always point out, I know we think we're tough. I know we think we're really tough if we are driving a big truck, or if we're drive one of those big Hummers or something of that nature, or we think we're really, really valuable when we drive one of those really expensive luxury cars. So the thinking may end up being, before too long, that maybe we were more valuable when we take a humble approach to our life. Maybe we're more valuable when we respect other people, when we respect the rights of other people to survive, when we respect the rights of ourselves to be able to, like myself, to be able to use a public area, a public street, in a very healthy and happy way. And that's what we've been discussing all this weekend, is about a healthier and happier lifestyle. And we've had so many good examples. So if you wanted to find out all the other things that's been happening over the last 3 days, you'll be able to go to our website, sustainablewestseattle.org. We will be loading up all the live footage we've been taking right over here on Facebook Live. And we'll be loading up all that so you can get a review on the things that we've discussed this week. And we've been enlightened by so many different good ideas. Don't continue to walk down the street in the status quo that you're living in now, because it will not be sustained. It cannot be sustained. There's no way it will be sustained. We're talking all this weekend about people of 10 years of age and under. In 2070, 2080, they will be my age. What are they going to get left? What are we going to leave behind? How's that going to work on the direction we're going now? We're about to the close of the Sustainable West Seattle Green Life Festival. There is one more thing we must do, and let's see what the time is. It's countdown time. So we have about 45 minutes now before we announce the winner of this $4,000 electric bike, who bought $5 raffle tickets in order to get that bike. So we will still take sales on the raffle tickets. $5 for a $4,000 bike, I think it's a pretty good deal. So if you haven't bought your raffle ticket yet, you're in good standing, because there isn't that many sold. There's been quite a few, but it's still way better than lottery. I know people, I see them all the time lined up at the 7-Eleven to buy their lottery tickets. What is the odds of winning that one compared to winning this $4,000 bike for a $5 ticket? You're in much better shape here, so I would suggest step up while you can, because we're only 45 minutes away from announcing the winner of this beautiful felt Bosch-equipped electric bike. So at any rate, we're still taking tickets right behind us. We're still selling tickets right behind us at the Sustainable West Seattle booth. Thank you again. We'll be back in about 45 to announce the winner.